of some of our questions, or Roger's questions, as well as our questions, on some of the complicated things that so much of science seems to, well, shall we rephrase that, so much of what is called science seems to portray a situation where God is left out. And I can hear the rustling. God is left out, and they seem to think that they can explain everything without God, and ultimately that they'll be able to use that as a basis for life. And obviously, life after death doesn't come into that, because obviously they're just an animal, so once they're dead, they're going to be buried, and that's it. Whereas Christianity says something slightly different to that, and has a different focus altogether. And one of the things you get used to in television is that a lot of these spokesmen are very positive. They can tell you, the dating system tells you that we can know how old things are. And yet what they don't tell you is that all these dating systems, and also the ones you saw earlier on last week, let me go back, that was only a fraction of them. If you look at all these different things, they're all dating systems. And you look over here and you can see the discrepancy between all the dating systems. So when they say, we can confidently say X amount is millions of billions of years old, what dating system are you using? Whose dating system are you using? What assumptions are built into that dating system? But they don't like you to ask those questions, so usually they curl over and tell you to go away. So anyway, it's interesting. We can have confidence that we can understand that everything that people believe are certain assumptions underlie them. And the question is whether they're reasonable assumptions or not. The more you study about the evolutionary concept and all the dating systems, the more faith you must have to believe in these things, because it takes more to believe in some of this stuff than it does to believe there's a God, an intelligence that can create everything. So that's basically the angle we're coming from, and we're going to look at slightly more detail. There's some more that we looked at last week, and there's lots more dating systems. And some scientists like Brian Cox says we know how old things are. Well, I think he's a little bit too young to actually know how old things are. Anyway, most scientists suggest that everything's billions of years old, and if the dating methods these scientists use are right, then obviously the implication is that the Bible is wrong. However, if the dating methods that give billions of years are wrong, then the Bible continues to be the inspired word of God and can be trusted. And there's always a fight. Since the days of Charles Darwin, it became clear that in order for evolution to occur, the Earth must itself be very old. In Darwin's day, many scientists thought that 20 million years would be enough time. Because they say for things to evolve the way they have, or what they seem to have to today, all you need is time. So given enough time, these things can happen. The problem is they can never agree on how much time is needed to be able to achieve all that they want to achieve in order to be where they are today. And so, as scientists began to discover the design of the universe, it soon became evident that the time would have to be increased from 20 million years to billions of years. So at the moment, I think they're up to about 5 billion years. The universe is 5 billion years old. Excellent, really. That should give them long enough to be able to fit in all the things they need to fit in order to see where we are today. Well, in order to prove that these billions of years actually occurred, certain dated methods have been invented to calculate the Earth's age. If you've taken Earth science in school, then we have studied the different ways that scientists date the rocks and other materials of the Earth. And from these dating things that they come up with, that they then determine the age of things as they find them and as they see them. Now, new ways of dating the rocks are supposed to be able to give ages of billions of years. These are supposedly the radiometric dating methods. Each of these methods is based upon the decay of a certain element. And one method, for instance, the element uranium-238, will break down into an element of lead over a period of years. So if they can measure how much lead there is around a certain thing, then they can assume or calculate back the way and say, the Earth must be X amount of years old because the rate of decay of the lead is such that that's the figure you come up with. And as we said last week, the problem with all these data methods is they're measuring things today, and they make the assumption that everything has always decayed at the same rate. The other assumption they make is they assume that they know how much was there to start off with. Obviously, you know, if you take, like Bernard used to do in his tea many years ago, 4 spoonfuls of sugar, and you could measure the rate that sugar would dissolve in the tea. And so by analysing his tea, you could say, Bernard, you put 4 spoonfuls of sugar in there, because we'll be able to analyse it. Some people will take less. But if it's a rate of decay, and depending on how much you drank and stuff like that, you can change the end product by drinking too much. Yes?
Just a minute, that's okay for things.
Yep.
But animals and people, you've got to give them the ability to think, well, what's the next step? What can I do now? You see what I mean? You know, a fish,
Yep.
it's got to think, well,
I want to
you
go
know,
and
it's
land.
all right out there, I've got to grow legs.
That's right.
So you've got to give it thinking power.
Oh yeah, well, no, there is that element in it. There is that element. But they would say, well, flying fish, suddenly, you know, maybe took a little jump out of the water and thought, well, this is not bad, you know. If only I could develop a little bit more wing power, I could maybe fly a bit further. And obviously, you know, the next generation come along and go, well, we can do that. And then, of course, from there, it moved on. Because there's all sorts of stuff that they look at. For example, a mud skipper. A mud skipper lives in the water, but it can walk in land. You know, there's lots of stuff that they say, well, there you are, it's evolution in action.
But it's still a mud skipper.
Well, that's true. And you don't make that observation. You know, you're not supposed to make those kind of observations, all right? Anyway, so half-life is important. It's supposed to be 4.5 billion years. Okay, so there's your thing. Therefore, if you know the rate of decay for an element, once you measure the amount of 2 elements in the rock, set that rock sample, simple math should give you an age for the rock. However, there are certain things that scientists must assume in order for the radiometric dating to work. And let's have a look at those assumptions. Assumption 1. The rate of decay has always been the same. The major assumption built into radiometric dating is the idea that the parent elements have decayed in the past at exactly the same rate as they're decaying today. This idea has certain problems because no one alive today knows what kind of environment existed in the distant past that would, you know, could change what was happening. The second, suppose you come upon a man who's cutting down trees in a forest. You watch him for an entire hour and he cuts down only 1 tree. Then you count the number of trees he has cut down, 31 in all, and you assume that he's been cutting down trees at the same rate all day. Then obviously he must have chopped down, been there for 31 hours. If it takes him 1 hour to chop down 1 tree, and he's got 31 trees lying around, he must have been there for 31 hours to be able to achieve that. Well, however, when you talk to the man, he tells you that earlier in the day when his axe was sharp and his stomach was full, he was cutting down 5 trees an hour. Only in the last hour, and he slacked off. So the assumption that you made that he's always been working at that rate, that gave you a certain figure, was totally wrong, because he worked at a faster rate earlier on. And so now he's tired, he's near the end, so he just took his time in the last one. Okay? So that's how the dating systems work. When you examine something for a certain period of time, whether it's salinity into the ocean, whether it's half-life of this, that, or next thing, then you assume that it's always decayed at that time. We're going to see later on, not tonight, it'll be in September because it's the last night. We're going to have a look at stalagmites and stalactites. And that's a crucial assumption they always make when you take it down big caves. And say, look at that. It's that length now, and it grows maybe 2 centimeters a year. Therefore, that's 10,000 years old. That's 50,000 years old. But actually, well, I'll leave the rest until we come to stalagmites. But, you know, come back, watch this space, all right? So, with information now, I understand he worked only for 7 hours, not 31. Assumption 2, elements have not been affected by outside forces. Another assumption built into radiometric dating methods is the idea that elements have not been affected by outside sources. That means that no water has soaked through the sample and carried away some of the lead, or that none of the uranium had a chance to escape through holes in the rock. You assume that just didn't happen, because that obviously affects the end product. Assumption number 3, the daughter element. Now hang on here, okay? The daughter element existed at the beginning. To date rocks using radiometric dating, a person must assume that the daughter element in the sample was not there in the beginning. So what they call the daughter element is the actual end product, a bit of lead or whatever else, okay? And they assume that that wasn't there initially, that all they have there is the accumulation of the vast time that's been involved to produce that. But if it was a, you know, say the measured lead was 2 pounds of lead they end up with, and they think, okay, if it's leaching out at an ounce of lead every 1,000 years, it's going to be X amount of years old. But they assume there was no lead in the original rock. If it was already a pound of lead in the original rock, then the whole dating system's up the creek. Okay? Do you understand that? Hanging in there? Bear with me. Okay. Who's to say the rock didn't start out with 23 ounces of lead already in it? The lead could have been in the rock from the beginning, and so could the uranium. So it's difficult to say about what you see now, because you don't know what it started off as. In addition to the assumptions are built into radiometric dating, another problem is that different radiometric methods drastically disagree with one another as to times. On one occasion, the same rock can be dated by different methods, and the dates can differ by several hundred million years. Okay? Just a little bit, eh? Not a problem. Okay? What's a million years, for friends? No problem. Okay. Some rocks from Hawaii, for example, were known to have been formed about 200 years ago when there was a big eruption. Okay? But they give a date of 160 to 3 billion years, depending on which method you use, mainly the potassium argon method. Okay? But we actually know when it came into existence, and that's just the way it goes. There's lots of places in the world where exactly the same thing happens. For example, Sunset Crater in northern Arizona, using the potassium argon method, it's over 200,000 years plus. In reality, there were Indian artifacts found within the rocks. They actually melted together in about 1065. So in an eruption, the lava has flown down, has gathered up in Indian stuff along with it, and then because it was cool enough, it didn't burn them up. Then when it solidified, inside the rock. So because of the Indian artifacts, man-made things found within the rock, you know it couldn't have been the billions of years or the hundreds of thousands of years that they claimed, because man wasn't supposed to be around that time. Okay? Lava flows at Mount Rural in New Zealand. Potassium argon dated at 275,000 years. In reality, it was produced in 1949, 1954, 1957, 75 was the latest one. In Havulu, basalt in Hawaii, again 1.2 to 22 million years old. In reality, it happened in 1801. It's actually within our historical data. Mount Etna, basalt again, in Sicily, near Sicily. Potassium argon dated the basalt at 140,000 to 350,000. And in actual fact, we know that Mount Etna exploded in 1972. Okay, so this is the problem. You basically, this little guy here is got a data mining machine. He says, "Well, there's a piece of rock here. How old is it?" So just like you do at the slot machines at the fair, you pull the handle down, and then the numbers come. Oh, that'll do. That's about as close as it'll get. All right. They pull a number out of the hat, basically. So, potassium has a couple more. Reality 1065. Indiana, I've done that one. Volcano erupted 900 years ago. 2 lava flows have been dated at 210,000, 230,000. Lava flows, New Zealand. Okay, we'll get rid of that one. Get rid of that one. I should have done. I've deleted. Sorry about that. That's the same. I had a couple of different slides there. We'll forget that one. 1881, 40 million years. So there are many explanations to explain why these results away from are so wrong. As the lava rose, the older material from inside the Earth was with it, but they're unable to explain why such a variation in the ages. If this is the explanation, then why could this not also be the case for many of the other dates that they so confidently say this is it. This doesn't disprove radioisotopic dating, but it does demonstrate the tremendous inconsistency in the interpretation. And this is some of you will come across all the time, you know. Whether you're a Christian or whether you're an atheist, the facts you're looking at quite often are the same. It's what you believe that then enables you to look at the facts and interpret them. And that's where the problem comes in, the interpretation of the facts. So we both agree, for example, looking at a whale's a whale. But we may totally disagree as to where a whale comes from. Alright? Because of the philosophy behind it. The assumptions we make. One place, Basalt Rock in Nigeria, was given a date of 95 million years when dated by potassium argon, and 750 million years when dated by uranium helium. So what dating method are you using? And whatever you use, you know, if the dating was consistent, you should always come up with the same date. It doesn't matter what dating stuff you're using. But none of it seems to apply. It's just a mess, really. What can you expect from dating methods that are based entirely on built-in assumptions anyway? Anything is possible. It's likely that other dating methods soon be discovered that will give even older ages for the Earth. But each dating method that renders colossal numbers of years will be based on similar unprovable assumptions. Okay? Whatever they come up with, there'll be certain assumptions behind it, and because nobody was around when it first happened, there's no way they can prove that those assumptions are true. One of the things you hear most of in the evolutionary world is carbon dating. Oh, carbon dating says this, carbon dating says that, carbon dating is the next thing, okay? Now, it's an interesting process. It's supposed to be some people who defend the theory of evolution will note to say that this method of dating supports the idea that the Earth is billions of years old. Although even evolutionists themselves say carbon dating doesn't go back much more than a couple of thousand years to be accurate. And even then, there's a lot of inconsistencies within it. But basically, the idea is that plants take in carbon dioxide, animals eat the plants. You can measure roughly how much carbon dioxide reacts with the oxygen and form carbon, goes in the atmosphere. After death, the carbon-14 decays into nitrogen-14, which eventually returns to the atmosphere. So oceans exchange carbon dioxide with the atmosphere, and some carbon remains in the sediment. So you basically measure what's left over, basically, or what they call the half-life of carbon dioxide. That's basically how it gets into the food chain. And so when you talk about carbon dating, usually you're talking about living things, the age of living things, rather than the age of dead things. Carbon dating may at times be a reliable dating method for less than 3,000 years, but not for the claimed 60,000 found in many textbooks. Carbon dating is based on an assumption, and the key assumption is shown to be false, and it's a thing called equilibrium. And it's a different picture of carbon dating being formed. The cosmic rays come in the atmosphere, it forms C14, combines with oxygen to form carbon dioxide, and then goes into the plants and the animals, and then you end up one of them. Okay, anyway, one part of a mammoth was carbon dated at 29,500 years old. Another part of the same mammoth was dated at 44,000 years. So that must be a very old mammoth that grew in very slow increments, you know. That's the way it goes. That's how accurate or inaccurate the carbon dating philosophy is. The truth, however, is carbon dating is totally ineffective in measuring millions or billions of years needed by evolutionists. Many people do not understand that carbon-14 dating can be used only to date organic material, things that were once living, such as plants, animals, and humans, or that it can be used only to date things that are relatively young. So the claims made for it, for the old stuff, are really erroneous. I mean, they're not right, okay? It's interesting, here is today, this guy is probably, as I said before, one of the most, that's a good word, vociferous, one of the most articulate proponents or people who talk about evolution. So he is dead against God. He He debates religious people when he can, wherever he can, and he claims to be the cutting edge of evolutionary technology. But even he says that carbon dating is useful for dating organic material where we're dealing in hundreds or a few thousand years. But it is no good for the evolutionary time scale when we're dealing with millions of years. Now that's a religious person, that's an anti-religious person, and he recognises the weakness in the radiocarbon method. Now unfortunately, you won't get his statement in many of the textbooks at school. Okay? Just because it's known, they don't promote that type of thing. Carbon dating has been shown to be far from perfectly measuring even organic material. Wood taken from an actively growing tree have been dated by this method as being 10,000 years old. Okay, it's a living tree now, and it's 10,000 years old, alright, according to that. Now even better. How about this one then? What about the fossils? What about the fossil record? Surely that shows that things have been around for billions of years to fossilise. Well, if you have a close look at that picture, what you're looking at there is a hat. Now, either that was a very old person who wore that hat, or that's quite a recent fossilisation.
I've actually seen that in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Mother Shipton's well.
Right.
And they hang up little hats and
Got
kiddies' shoes and that, and just a few months
Yeah.
on, they crystallise.
That's right. We're going to show that slide later
Oh,
on.
great!
But it'll probably be September. Keep in mind.
September.
Okay. So so they say that fossilization takes a long, long period of time, and therefore things must be old because it's fossilized. But as you can see there, obviously somebody's hat. How about this? A clock in the rock. It's fossilized into the rock. Now, either they were very clever millions of years ago, and they had clocks millions of years ago, or there's a problem with saying that fossilization takes a long period of time. And there's a timepiece that proves it.
So be able to
Caught in time.
rock around the clock.
Okay, how about this one? They had cowboy boots.
Oh.
That's one old cowboy, that is.
Yeah.
Right? And the manufacturer of this particular boot confirmed the date on the limestone cowboy.
Oh.
Okay. Interesting, isn't it? The manufacturer confirmed that the particular stitching pattern of this boot dates no later than the mid-1950s.
So was that a body exhumed but the body was fossilised?
Yeah. Because it depends what you... I mean, they've done some good stuff in Ireland where they've dug up bodies and the flesh in some parts is almost okay, you know what I mean? It's still got some of its texture. So it depends on what you're in, and that's in the peat bogs and stuff like that. Obviously the other stuff is mummified. But, yeah. Hello.
Oh, sorry.
Wrong place?
Yes.
Okay, that's not wrong. All right, place? Okay. So, yeah. So, everybody thinks it's at millions of years old, but instead stop. Right.
Oh. You get the boot for that.
Fever bone. Yes, you get the boot.
Well, you know who makes boots, don't you?
Boots.
Yes, you know who makes boots, don't
Go on.
you? It's also a football club in Northampton.
All right.
Well, forget it.
Who's the, what do you call them? The good nickname.
Cobblers.
Cobblers.
Cobblers, that's the one.
I was thinking about Doc Martens. but-
Okay, another thing that's quite often put forward is, well, diamonds, it takes lots of time. Opals, it takes lots of times. Lots of billions of years. It's going to be crushed. It's going to be...
No, it's
you know,
true, isn't it?
Very true, isn't it? Well, you can see from here, you see. Opals have fascinated people for centuries, as early as the first century. The Roman Pliny wrote of opals. Fossils made of opals. Water and ground carrying dissolved silica similar to glass in windows. The sids have seeped through beds of sand and grit, but silica deposits in cracks in the water subsequently evaporate the silica and leaves the opal in place. Okay? Now, what about diamonds? That takes a long period of time. But and today, a lot of the industrial diamonds that are used are actually made, produced by us. In a very short period of time, we can actually make diamonds, because it's not the length of time that's involved in making the opal or diamond, it's the pressure and the heat that's involved that makes the opal and the diamond. Okay, because as Frank said in his sample, was it maybe the other week, basically you're looking at coal at the other extreme. A diamond is just a carbon that we put under huge pressure, and coal is the other side.
Can you not turn people into diamonds now?
Turn people into diamonds. They could do.
I've heard of people being rough,
I mean,
being a rough diamond. But
Yeah, I've been under pressure a few times.
I've seen something in known the funeral parlour.
All right.
Of different things that can happen.
Okay, because they're talking about freezing
Or a
you.
stone or something.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
no.
Well, they're talking about freezing you, because then hopefully technology in a couple of hundred years' time, if they're going to bother, is going to, some people just get frozen on the head. They get their body chopped off, just left the head, and get the head preserved, quite often under the freezing process, in the hope that,
Cryogenics.
cryogenics, and in the hope in a couple hundred years' time, when the technology's moved on, they'll be able. Who would want to?
you
You know,
I
who's
ain't
going to
got no
bother?
body, nobody's
Yeah.
got me.
That's right. You know, who's going to bother?
I ain't got no bone.
Is that why this says diamonds are gold spikes round?
What? They can, anyway.
Yeah.
So, well, if you want, if you put it under enough pressure, you can make a few for your own girlfriends. Okay? The simplest form, when the dead body of an animal falls into mud or silt or lake or swamp, the soft parts of the animal gradually rot away to leave the hard bones. Okay? Now, a lot of the fossils that we dig up, and a lot of the archaeology done where they dig up big fossils, they usually find that they're either compressed in the stone, but they're usually found in full form. They're not so much found in skeletal form. They are found in skeletal form as well. But this is what normally happens. Slowly covered by layers of mud which are dropped and deposited by rivers. As more and more layers of mud are added, the bottom layers are turned into rock by the pressure there and overlying sediment. And now you get your fossil. That's what happens. First of all, dead plants and animals decompose very quickly due to bacteria and the natural chemical process. You know, you see something, you see it all the time in the sea, something dies, and before it even gets down to the bottom of the sea, there's already people chomping away at it, you know. And by the time it gets to the bottom of the sea, that's kind of things happen.
Fragmented.
Yeah. Second, there are a lot of insects, worms, animals called scavengers that eat dead things. They have oxidation, but oxygen in the air causes animals and plants to usually decompose. Finally, there are chemicals in the water on the ground, such as acids, which decompose and dissolve everything, including bones and teeth. Now, here we have, this is a classic example of what you could find in millions of years' time. That elephant there lies there for quite a while, and then a bit of sediment comes along, covers it, and then a bit of pressure comes along, and millions of years' time will dig up a full-size elephant. Okay? Like they do with mammoths in Siberia and places like that. The only problem with that is, after 7 days, that's what happens to the elephant. Okay? How could the elephant have decomposed so quickly? How about that? And fossilised.
My bum was big in this.
Yeah, amazing. This is what, instead of being eaten away by everything, that's a fossil. That hasn't been touched. There's no worms, scavengers, nothing got at that. So what's the difference? How can you end up with that instead of the other one? What usually happens is everything in bone or plant is replaced a tiny bit at a time by minerals dissolved in water of the ground. As the water moves through the ground, it carries various kind of minerals, such as silica, calcite and pyrite along with it. and as that percolates through the body of the animal, it ends up. When the bones and teeth of an animal are passed around, buried in the ground, become wet with this water, the mineral in the water replaces all the material in the bone, tooth or plant, and becomes hard as a rock. In fact, it now is a rock, but it has almost exact shape of the bone, tooth, and plant that it replaces. That's where you get the fossilized thing. But if you allow the time for normal decomposition to take place, you wouldn't have that. That would be eaten in the skeleton. So something's happened to that, and it's happened quickly. That's a key element. Fossil graveyards. You see these things here, they're not scavenged. They're not eaten apart. They're as they were when they're caught in whatever flood deposits or whatever deposits found in, and then the pressurized them, the mineral water went through them, and they ended up fossilized like that. Matter of fact, I was in Whitby. There's loads of it's kind of like a shale along the beach. I mean, the beach is slowly receding, but slowly receding. A bit fell off when I was there. It's actually quite fast receding. But I actually picked up a bunch of fossils from the rock, just right where I was. And funny thing was, the smaller ones, by the time I got them back home, they're already disintegrated, fallen apart. But you know, all the fossil shapes were there. In a Karoo formation of South Africa, an estimated 800 B vertebrate animals are all found buried together. 8,800. Old red sandstone formation, which covers half of Scotland, 9,000 feet thick, and shows billions of fish preserved and contorted in disturbed positions. Okay, this fossil evidence for evolution. An expert says there is no such thing as fossil evidence for evolution. All the stuff they're trying to build together, all the pieces together, where this turns into that, turns into that, turns into that, there's no evidence for it. They're stuck with it. But because the only alternative is to believe in God, they're stuck with it, so they believe it. This is what time we got.
Well, being as you started really early,
Yep.
you're just coming up to quarter two.
Well, we'll hold it there. We'll save stalagmites and stalactites for next September.
What's interesting as well that the jewellers sell amber, and amber is stuff that's allegedly fossilised, and it's been either washed ashore or it's been dug up.
Yeah.
And inside the amber, there's insects.
Yeah.
And these are worth, that particular amber is worth a lot of money because of the novelty of the insect.
Yeah.
But inside one I saw was a mosquito.
Yeah.
And they dated it some silly date, and yet it's identical to this mosquito that you get today.
Yeah.
You know, why didn't that evolve into a flying elephant?
I'm glad it's in the elephant. It's still in the amber. Mosquitoes are not the nicest things, are they?
No.
Okay. Any questions? What you've seen so far? You doing all right? I know it's a bit heavy.
Certainly it's an undeniable fact
Yep.
that we know how far away the sun is, 93 million miles.
Yep.
If it was closer, we would all be frozen up.
Yep.
There wouldn't be any
Yep.
life, any kind of life.
Yep.
If it was further away,
Yep.
we would be frozen.
Yep.
There wouldn't be any life. So,
We're just bang on, aren't
as
we?
far as we know, nothing has changed since there ever was a sun.
Well, this is. I mean, they would be quite happy with that. I mean, because they would say the sun's X amount of billion years old anyway. And so we're just, you know,
Where's the evidence for that?
We're a byproduct of that. You know. It's just
Where's the evidence for that?
Oh, well,
the sun is billions
you've
of
seen
years
the
old?
slides. You know, there's no evidence for it. You know. But it's interesting. But the thing is, you know, these classes, in a sense, you know, we haven't even got to God yet. But when we get to God, we're going to see that it takes actually more belief to believe these statements. And even though the evidence actually proves most of the statements are false statements, but they still cling on to them, even though most of them actually know that these are false statements. The older ones. I mean, a lot of people coming out of university, they don't know they're false statements, because this is what they get fed all the time. They get this story, and they're told that question, and that's, you know, because everybody believes it. You know, the God person is the anomaly. The God person is the person who's crazy, believing there's a God. because whether it's biology you study, whether it's archaeology you study, whether it's geology or geography, this consistent story, everything points to we just happened and we just evolved. And because the teachers tell you that, and because even at university the stuff tells you that, then that's how it's got to be. It must be. And even the scientists, I mean, one of my favourite programs is some of you know on the web, TED, www.ted.com. It's all cutting edge technology, but a majority of the speakers are speaking from an evolutionary perspective. Even though the stuff they see is absolutely mind-blowing, and even though the stuff actually when trying to explain what they see, they're talking in terms of miracles, the improbability of these things happening, and all that type of stuff. But the thing is, they're surrounded by people who all believe the same, that they all came from nothing, and therefore, you know, there's no the religious person is seen as some sort of idiot or a nutcase, and therefore, you know, we don't listen to them because look, how can all these teachers be wrong? How can all these textbooks be wrong? And the funny thing is, even within their own writings, in 1995 at a big symposium of evolutionists, over 200 people were there, and the spokesman at the symposium said, you know, everything we've been taught to believe up to 1995 has dramatically had to change, because now we're dealing in a totally different environment and different technology, and it's come up with totally different answers. You know, but the stuff before that is still the stuff that's been taught in our schools. It's still stuff taught in our universities, because they're not all, you know, it's like everything. It's like when you buy something, you're not buying something that's cutting edge. You're buying, if you go down to Curry's today and you look at the bargains on sale in the computer world, it tells you it's an i3 core computer. i3 core, they're on i7. But they don't tell you that when you're buying that. This is, look at this, this is cutting edge, isn't it? It's 2 generations old. That's why they're selling it cheap. You know, and it's the same in the science world and the evolutionary world. The average man you're talking to, and even the average TV program, is actually talking in terms of what we used to believe, what evolutionists used to believe 20, 30, 40 years ago. What the cutting edge evolutionists now believe is way, way different from that. Last year, was it last year, the year before, we celebrated 200 years of Darwinism, since Darwin. The cutting edge evolutionists said, we don't believe Darwin. We don't believe that, because it's stuff he said, spontaneous generation, all that type of stuff, it didn't work. We know it didn't work. And yet, if you listen to most people when they're talking, they say, oh, Darwin, I use a T. He's the one who changed our thinking, that's the one we now believe in. They're just, you know, totally different. Anyway, this stuff, you know, some people don't agree with going through this kind of stuff in a Bible study. What's this doing in a Bible study? But this is the kind of stuff that you're going to come up against day in, day out. This is what the people who are your friends and your neighbours believe in. And therefore, if you don't know what they believe, there's no way you can communicate. Oh, there might be a different thing idea. God may be more reasonable if we can just have a look at some of this stuff. And especially when what they're thinking, this is the true stuff, and it's not the true stuff. They're being hoodwinked. Time magazine, that's a cracker on the evolutionary front. Science magazine, there's another one called Focus, and they're all from a hugely evolutionary perspective. Brilliant magazines, full of interesting facts, but the interpretation of the facts, that's where the problem lies. I love reading those stuff. I like the facts, but I still believe there's God behind them, as opposed to just happening by chance. And that's the question. Bernard, will you lead us the word of prayer?